So let me start again by welcoming you all to the workshop here in Sun River. And this is a special meeting. Of course, all of our workshops and meetings are special, but this one is especially special. You may or may not be aware, but last month, IRIS celebrated its 30-year anniversary. And if you consider that, that's really quite remarkable. An entire generation of seismologists were born and raised and reached scientific adulthood with IRIS being in existence. And the facilities that IRIS runs and manages and operates in place to help them accomplish their science goals and facilitate their science, do both research and education. So how wonderful is that? That's really quite remarkable. It's also a special meeting because we've just completed a successful transition in our leadership. You're all here today, this morning, so please make sure you come to dinner this evening where we will formally be recognizing David Simpson and the tremendous accomplishments and contributions he's made to the community. We've been very fortunate in being able to attract Bob Dietrich to be our next president. Bob is 6 weeks into his presidency, so make sure that if you didn't have a chance to stop by and introduce yourself last night at dinner, please do so during the workshop. Introduce yourself, say hello, and welcome Bob to IRIS. I think we're really fortunate to have attracted Bob to IRIS with his experience and his expertise and the leadership that he's going to provide to IRIS moving forward. It's also special because this is our first year in our new cooperative agreement with the National Science Foundation to operate the SAGE facilities. So the theme and title of our workshop this time is very appropriate for this time, as the facilities that we manage and the services that we provide have diversified really significantly to accomplish the science goals of the community. And this workshop is designed to explore the science priorities and the services and facilities that are required to address those priorities. And that's exciting, but also a bit pressing if we reflect on the remarks that Jim Whitcomb just made. The timeline is very short for planning and input to the NSF for the process of the recompetition of facilities in 2018. So we want to use this workshop and use this opportunity for community planning, and it's quite important that we do that. Fortunately, we don't have to start from the very beginning. There are lots of planning documents that exist. The seismological community, the earth science community has generated a number of documents that articulate science priorities, and many of these take an approach of addressing grand challenges. So certainly there was the seismological grand challenges document that was generated in a workshop in 2009, and that's a long-term science plan for seismology, a 10-year plan. A similar plan was developed by the geodetic community basically in the same time as the geodetic community was preparing for their proposal, their gauge proposal. Earth Science also has, EarthScope also has a science plan, a decadal science plan. And then there have been a host of NRC documents that articulate grand challenges to which seismology can make contributions. And last but not least, there's a beautiful document in Earth Science Literacy Principles that also does a good job reminding us that the science we do has impacts that reach much beyond the audience in this room and to a broader scope of society and citizens, and ultimately educating them and helping them in setting policies and making decisions. The long-range science plan for seismology that was developed in 2009 is actually an excellent document. If you haven't looked at it in a while, I encourage you to do so. The community put a lot of time and effort into the document, and it lays out a series of grand challenges to which seismology can contribute. These themes are all very broad themes. They cut across the swath of the earth sciences and in many respects the broader geosciences. The plan itself articulates a number of science goals and actually also talks about the kinds of facilities and infrastructure support that's going to be required to meet those goals. This was done in 2009, so we're 5 years into a 10-year science plan. This is a good time to sort of review and assess where we are and where we need to go. So it's a good document, and I encourage you to take a look at it as we continue in our planning processes. So as I said, we're in our first year of our new cooperative agreement with the National Science Foundation. And in that cooperative agreement, the NSF has funded IRIS to manage and operate SAGE, seismological facilities for the advancement of geoscience and EarthScope. But in addition to the funding that we receive from the National Science Foundation for the SAGE facilities, we do receive significant funding from other programs within the earth sciences to fund facilities that support the science that we do. So the ocean bottom facility, facilities that operate in the polar environments, GLISTEN, the CEUSN, a legacy of US Array as it transitions to Alaska, and funding through IT initiatives within EarthCube, and as well as funding for international development. When we wrote the proposal to the National Science Foundation for the SAGE facilities, of course, that proposal has to be founded and grounded in science. The facilities are funded based on a science justification. When we wrote that proposal, and if you haven't looked at that in a while, I'd encourage you to look at it again as well. But when we wrote that proposal, we structured our science justification under three primary grand challenges, and they're up in the slide. I won't read them to you, but if you read them, they're really quite broad. And the attempt here was to look at those planning documents that are relevant to the breadth of earth sciences and in many instances the whole geosciences, and also the grand challenges document specifically for seismology, and to try to take those science priorities and group them into these three broad themes. So that's the context in which we are actually operating and managing the SAGE facilities, is to address science goals under these three themes. As part of some governance changes that the board made recently, we established 3 science advisory committees. And these new committees are put in place as a formal mechanism to make sure that IRIS is aligning its facilities and its services with science goals. I think we all know that everything we do fundamentally is grounded in science, but within our governance structure, we didn't have an easy way to forefront and highlight the science. And these science advisory committees are an attempt to help us do that. These are new committees. They're just getting started. Each of the committees has co-chairs and a board liaison, and we're in the process of populating these committees now. So if this is something you're interested in getting engaged in, please let us know. The committees are going to be functioning by and large as virtual committees, but they do report to the board on an annual basis, and they're going to be an important part in helping us provide input as a community to the NSF in the planning processes that Jim was talking about. And if you look at the co-chairs of these committees, you'll see that we've intentionally reached broader than the traditional seismological community to bring on board other parts of the earth sciences community, because again, fundamentally, these science questions really are cross-cutting across the earth sciences. And so We want to engage a broader spectrum of the community as we think about science priorities and how we can best align our facilities and services and evolve our facilities and services to meet these science goals. So back to the workshop. The strength of IRIS really fundamentally is our community engagement. The role of the consortium plays in the oversight and the evolution of the facilities is really critical to keep them relevant and keep them innovative and to keep them current. The other strength is the fact that we integrate the breadth of data collection and data management all the way through to research and education. And I think that integration is critical ultimately for the success of our science. So, in this workshop, it is very much a workshop. We're looking for you to be engaged and provide your input into what is the beginning of these planning processes, ultimately for input to the NSF, and ultimately for recompetition of the SAGE facilities. So your input and your engagement really is essential. So as we keep an eye to the future, it can be hard in times of constrained financial resources to think imaginatively, creatively, and in an aspirational mode. But I think it's really essential that we do so. If we reflect back 10 years ago, as Jim indicated, when EarthScope was just in its initial phases, we were in a very different funding environment. And 10 years later, okay, things are a little constrained right now, but 10 years into the future, which is the planning that we're doing, we're really planning on a 10-year horizon. Let's be optimistic, and let's assume that the funding environment is going to change again and that good ideas can be invested in. So I think we should be aspirational. We need to be realistic. We want to do things that are feasible, but I think it's important to be aspirational. It's important to consider, what is it that we want to do, and not only what, but why. Why is it that we want to do these things? We should be considering what can we do technologically now and what's likely to be possible in that 10-year horizon. But not only what can we do, but ultimately what should we do. We will have to make choices, and we will have to set priorities. And then sort of the downstream end of it, if we're successful, what difference will it make? So I think challenging ourselves and addressing these questions as part of our planning process is going to be important. And as we think through, ultimately, our science goals and the priorities, ultimately, most of us got into seismology and into science because we really have a passion, fundamentally, for exploration, discovery of our planet and how it works. So I think that ultimately, when we talk about a core, that kind of is our core. And seismology has a tremendous amount to contribute to that. But those contributions, have real and tangible benefits to society and the potential to inspire the next generation of scientists and citizens. So that's my introduction to the workshop and to this morning's session.